Hello, this is Demetrius Gelatis, and with me, I've got Josh Burbul. What's going on, Josh?
Oh, not much, Tim. It's good to be with you here. It'll be fun.
Excellent. We are here doing a podcast. Josh and I are going to be doing this one today, and we're probably going to be doing this, somewhat regularly, just Josh and I. And the reason why is, we want a segment where we can contribute to the Cue It Up Network's content and share some of our ideas in more of a long form. So it's interesting, I'll tell you something funny is I got a question, and Josh, you saw this. I got a message on our Facebook group that said, do you have your own podcast? Or somebody asked me, do you have a podcast? And I thought it was very odd because you would think that you would know the answer to that question. You'd think that would be a question if somebody asked you, do you have a podcast? You'd really probably be able to answer that. But I was kind of scratching my head. I'm like, I'm not really sure because, the really like Nate Mindham and Cue It Up Network is kind of he invited me to join the Cue It Up podcast, and I was just jumping on to kind of contribute. And then as this kind of built up into the Cue It Up Network, and he's got different podcasts contributing and publishing under one channel. And now if I'm going to be doing, kind of our own episodes with me and Josh on a recurring basis, is it our podcast or that we're uploading under Cue It Up Network or is it, just Cue It Up podcast directly, and in the end, it doesn't much matter to me. The bottom line is I just want to talk pool and I want to talk to my buddy Josh and I want to, share with the audience. And so I'm going to leave that one in limbo, and we'll actually leave it up to the audience because, we've kind of gotten some general, there's different preferences. And that's what's great. Actually, one thing I really like about the Cue It Up Network is that we've got a wide variety now of different types of content. So for people that, one of the things is that, some people felt that I was way too long-winded. Other people wanted to hear me go further into some of the things that we talked about. And so for people that thought that I was drawing on too long, they don't have to tune into this podcast, and there's going to be a lot of other options. But then for people that want to hear, 15-hour conversations about the differences between the types of chalk, they're in the right place. So, all right. So anyway, with that being said, we've got me, we've got Josh, and a little bit about our layout. We're going to try to kind of get a little rhythm going with these, where I want to talk a little bit about what Josh and I have been working on ourselves in the last few weeks or whatever, or what we've got upcoming for pool, and then our overall format is we're going to then try to work at a couple road stories. Josh and I have been on the road for a long time, so I thought we'd begin and end with a road story, and then in the middle we're going to have our discussion topic. So this is rough. I'm not going to be bound to this, but roughly speaking, we'll do a little intro, talk a little bit about what we've been doing with pool ourselves, probably kick off with a road story, have a discussion topic, and then end with another fun story from our travels on the road. And today, our discussion topic should be a good one, and it's one that a lot of people have had a lot of questions about. So we are going to do a deep dive into pool practice and a lot of the things surrounding, what to practice, what people do wrong with practice, different things of that nature, and the reasoning why behind it. So that's what's on the docket. So according to that outline that I just created or committed ourselves to, Josh, tell me about pool. I know that, sometimes the answer is going to be that you've been really busy with, life and work and that you haven't been playing a lot, but what have you been up to in the last few weeks with pool? What have you been working on? What do you have upcoming? Tell me about your pool journey.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just, that is the answer. Like I have been busy. I've just been kind of buried, but I still get time. I got a Blue Label 9-foot in my garage. And so I do have time to get out there and play periodically in practice. And so that's kind of what I've been doing. And then I'll play some sessions. It's funny, man. It's like, I'll get to where it's hard to go out there after you work a long day and to go out there and grind through the ghosts or drills and everything. But what's easy to do is go play somebody. So any opportunity I get that I can go out, I shouldn't say any opportunity, but if I can get an opportunity to go out and play, I'll try to play. And so I've been playing a little bit with Brecky and Brian Brecky. And so we've been hitting some games and things. And but it's like, yeah, just kind of that, just a few drills, as ghost as much as I can. And I'm going to talk about drills and ghost later. So, with you, so that'll be fun. But, yeah, that when I can get it together, and then that's it. And so then coming up, as far as like, I'm going to be playing, in Beloit in April. So that's cool. Larry Neville's, benefit tournament is going on out there. So I'm going to be playing in the, the big table 10 ball. I think they're gonna have 16 players and stuff. So I'm all kind of registered for that in middle of, I think it's like April 17th. And, yeah. And then I set out a couple challenge things that I haven't kind of heard back on yet, but that kind of got me motivated to get out and practice a little bit. So we could talk about that as well down the road, but, in this podcast, but yeah, that's kind of what I've been working on. So pool as much as I can, but a ton of work. So.
Very cool. Let's see here. Yeah, I agree with you. It's irritating that that playing with other people is so much easier sometimes than practicing, and especially it's just I don't think I'll ever be able to put in the same amount of time or energy into practicing that I can when I have somebody try to beat me, which is really tough because it's so much easier to just pick up my cue and go to the practice table than it is to try to line up a game and commit to a longer session and all this stuff. But it's definitely it's definitely critical. I think that just having somebody firing back at you and pushing you to put in the work, and it's good to have a workout partner. So for me, I did that. I guess I had Jesse Engel come over this week and we hit some balls. That was useful, just to kind of get me fired up. And it's tough because I have kids, and so by the time they go to bed, it's 9:30 when I'm free, and to put in a session from 9 to midnight when you've got to get up the next morning and do a bunch of stuff, it's like, man, all right. But then once we started playing, I'm glad we did, and it was good to kind of get into the play rhythm instead of the practice rhythm. Outside of that, I've been playing a little bit. It's tough, I do these boot camps. Boot camp plug. I should tell people that don't know this. I'm a professional billiard trainer now. I do 3-day boot camps. I've been doing this full time for over a year now. I've probably done over 50 of these, and I train, serious, intermediate players that are serious about the game up to advanced players that are serious about the game. And I do 3-day training sessions. So it doesn't really matter location because people can, my last few students have come from California, Texas, wherever. But generally speaking, you can fly in, you stay with me at my house, and I break down your pool game and really put together a good plan that you look at. We agree that this is a good plan, establish a vision of where we want that game to be, how we're going to get from here to there, and work really hard over 3 days to give new techniques, knowledge, and basically a good road, a good path to get to that vision. We make a lot of progress while you're here. And then, of course, you're leaving here as a different player. You'll see the table differently and have a very clear path to follow on your own after you get out of here to keep making that stronger and stronger. So that's what I do. And if anyone's interested, they can learn more on my website, like Minnesota, poolbootcamp.com. So www.mnpoolbootcamp.com. So let's see here. So I've been doing some boot camps, and so I get to play a little bit and I get to train, and I always have breakthroughs during these boot camps. There's cool things that I learned from really understanding like why these things work or what these techniques are and how they come together. And it's interesting. I'm a pretty knowledgeable pool player, but I still pick stuff up, and sometimes those things will just come up at a key spot where I just know that this is a little bit better percentage on this shot because I've broken it down and then it works, and haha. Other than that, I've done a little practice on my own, of course, the last few weeks, and without getting too deep into it, I'll say I've been working a little. I'll just say one thing I've been working on is just last night I spent a lot of time really thinking about time between shots. I had Harry is our local. He's the 12-year-old Harry that's playing pretty good. Hank the Tank. He went down to Florida last weekend and ended up taking second in the 13 and under boys division, which is getting tougher every year. I think it's Adrian. Oh boy, I'm not going to say his last name because I'm going to get it wrong. But Adrian from California, it was actually the winner of that division. And he'll be playing a match on Aaron Taylor's stream, Aaron's Pool Parlor, on Sunday night. So I'll be actually doing commentary for that with Harry. But anyway, Harry and I we reviewed some of his matches from the tournament. And one thing that I've seen with the kids is that they play too quickly. And there's a difference between, I was talking to Harry about this, there's a difference between playing too fast and playing quickly. Playing quickly is when you go through the checklist of what needs to happen on every shot, and you just go through that checklist quickly and confidently. So make a clear decision, visualize the shot, whatever, take a deep breath, go through your pre-shot routine, get on the ball. You can do those things very quickly, but they must be done. And when you watch the kids play, because they're so nervous and under a ton of pressure, they are moving fast where they're actually rushed and they're skipping those steps where they're like kind of, whether it's a knee-jerk reaction to wanting to get the pressure over with, or just wanting to look like they're confident so that nobody sees how nervous they are, or just all these different, or trying to like loosen up and play themselves in a stroke, or just feeling so, so doubtful about their abilities in the moment that they just want to like throw their stick at the ball. And all I'm going to ask myself to do is just, hopefully I can wobble this ball in and I'll just take what I get. Hopefully it works out because I'm not in a spot to really ask much for myself right now. All these different things where people just get up, throw their stick at the ball and go, flail around ineffectively. And watching the kids play, there was a lot of that, a lot of extreme pressure, and the kids not really knowing how to manage that. So I showed Harry, we reviewed some of his early matches. And then we reviewed some of his later matches after he'd settled in, and we looked at the differences between time between shots. And he looked so much smoother and more like I normally see him play later in the tournament. And then we went and watched some top players and watched, JL Chang and watched Shane and watched different speed players and what their time between shots was. And what we discovered was that most players when they have a difficult situation, maybe a tough opening shot where it's the rack is, tough shot on the one, hard to get on the two, there's some congestion, whatever, maybe they've got some safety options. Oftentimes it would be 30 to 60 seconds before they would, maybe 30 to 40 seconds before they really make a decision to commit to the shot. And so they were taking 45 seconds or so to shoot those shots. Once they got to where the rack was open and now the rack was just a routine run, they would probably take 30 seconds a shot on if the shot was, still tough to execute, like, hey, it's routine. We know what we're going to do. The decision making isn't that hard, but it's, you still have to execute. It's a tough shot, demands attention. They'd maybe take 30, 40 seconds for shots like that. And then on shots where once it was routine to where not only wasn't there a lot of decision making, but there wasn't really much tough to execute left, then they're taking like 15, 20 seconds a shot and, tapping in the 10 ball. And so it was interesting, like roughly speaking, 30 to 60 seconds for difficult decisions and tough shots, 30 seconds for just, no decisions and routine shots, and then 15 seconds for like tap them in last 4 balls. And so that was, but they were completing their checklist every time. So anyway, it was interesting. I had a cool talk with Harry about that. And so then I went to my practice table and I started really thinking about time between shots and my rhythm. And, it was just something different to focus on while I was playing. So I've been doing some drills. I've been working on some specific skills, of course, but then that was something I was having fun with last night, was time between shots. So that is cool. Do you have any thoughts on that or not really? I mean, anything if you wanted to jump in on that, you can. Otherwise, we can just jump right into a road story.
Yeah, I don't know, Dem. Like you and I have talked about like pre-shot routine and all that stuff. So I'm just kind of listening. I think it's interesting. I think what you're saying is really critical, and it's that there's a certain amount of like certain steps that need to happen, and there's a certain level or speed at which we process as players, and everyone processes things differently depending on how their mind works and their experience and how many times they've seen that situation. But the critical thing is to make sure you have that process. And so, I mean, I'm sure we can all think back to when we've been like, feel like we're in the headlights a little bit and uncomfortable, and we can lose that process. So it's cool. I think there's a lot of good stuff there, Dan. That's really, really good. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah. And the thing that's really weird to me is how two things, how there's a difference between quick and rushed, where completing those steps quickly, people can, Josh Viller or Jason Shaw, and even people like Shane, I mean, they can get playing really quick, but they're not playing rushed, and they still complete these steps on every shot where you can see them make up their mind clearly. You can see them, do an air stroke or like Shane, and Shane's an interesting one because his speed ranges. Okay. So when he's playing games like one pocket, or if he's playing a game like 10 ball where maybe he's got a tough safety to play, or he's got to line up a tough kick, or he's got a tough opening shot where, just something difficult, like you'll see him take time. Or if he's been in his chair for 3 racks and his opponent just ran 3 racks on him, and now he's got a tough opening shot, like he might take a little time. So on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being super slow and 10 being super recklessly fast, Shane might start at a 5. But then as he kind of works himself through that tough part of the rack, he might play 6, 7 to kind of run the routine shots. And then as he catches his gear, he can hit a gear where he stays at an 8 and he plays pretty quick. And so he's one of those guys that changes gears as he plays, and he could definitely get into a rhythm where he's playing very, very, quick and confidently, but he's still completing those steps. And I think that's the thing. And so one of the things that is very funny is that when I've got players that aren't completing the right steps, it's not that I want them to play slower. I want them to complete steps. And it's very funny because it's like, it's not about the seconds elapsed between the shots so much as it is about accomplishing certain things before they're ready to shoot. And so it's strange. And anyway, yeah, it's a big deal. And I really think as we get into practice, I think it's a really big deal because when we practice, we can get way too analytical, and we can start, it's easy for a lot of people that are practicing people to get way too analytical and start thinking about how they're doing what they're doing and get like, self one and the, conscious instructions and all this technical stuff. And it's like, you can't really bog down with all that when you're playing because you have to flow a little bit more. And so holding yourself accountable to a pace of play can be, putting that on the radar is being very important. It can be a good thing for a lot of people that struggle with that. So, all right. So moving right along, we talked a little bit about it, and boy, there's a lot of pressure on our opening road story. These are not necessarily, there's not necessarily like, oh, we hustled some guy. Like it's not even
exactly.
Anyway. So, but
this is how we got all the cash. Yeah.
But I think what's funny is that some of the best memories on the road, it's not always like, oh, I made this shot, I beat some guy, I got the cash, I scammed the cash. It's not always like that. It's like sometimes it's the little things that are, make these experiences really, really fun. And you got to be open, man, to enjoying all of this stuff. So we are going to open with our trip to West Salem. So Josh, I'll set it up and then you can tell your experience. So this was 2009. I remember vividly because this was, we'd been playing, for years together, but we just started getting like a little bit more serious about trying to be really organized. Like we were trying to commit to a tournament schedule and really make sure that we had like practice goals. And, we had some joint bankroll and we were trying to, play local tournaments to kind of grow our bankroll so we could take shots at bigger tournaments. And we put together like some kind of business plan of how we were going to, what our income goals were going to be and how we were going to pick tournaments based on projected ROI. Like I was trying to, I was looking back, it was a little like, I wouldn't say pompous, but it was a little insufferable. but at the time, but it makes sense. Like we're trying to find a way to set ourselves up to earn enough income that we could play our way into bigger tournaments. So from that standpoint, I can't knock what we were doing. So as I'm scouting out tournaments, I found the 9-ball extravaganza in West Salem, Wisconsin. And Josh, I believe if I remember right, that when I found this and I looked at the payouts and I looked at the added money and I looked at the description, I called you excitedly and I said, we need to get this tournament on our calendar. And why? Why did I say this was a must stop?
I believe the word you used was, this thing is juicy, Josh. You just said it's a juicy tournament. It's a juicy spot.
I'm like, this is as good as it gets. You can't get your money any better than this 9-ball extravaganza. You can't get your money in any better than this. So we, with a lot of high hopes and big, dreams of Vegas, the Mirage.
I gotta add one more thing, Demi.
Yeah.
The great thing about this time frame, and we haven't been on the road or gone to tournaments forever, but okay, the one thing that I love about you, Demi, is that you always used to say, "What does first and second pay in this hog?" Because that's what we're getting. So like to set expectations, right? It always used to just make me just roll on the ground, because I was like, like completely the opposite. I'm like, oh man, I'm just such a nervous player, and you're just like, this is juicy. First and second, what does it pay? I don't know. I just want to throw that in. So that's always been a good thing. What does first and second play in this hog?
I think I did that just to shark you. You know what I mean? Because I just Because, okay, so, I mean, with expectation, of course, expectation is like the devil when it comes to pool. And if you start getting ahead of yourself or, thinking that you're going to do well, like all these things, you want to be confident but not have expectation. And so when you say stuff like that, it's like tugging on Superman's cape. I mean, it's spitting into the wind. You're really asking for it when you start getting. And so I would do that on purpose, just to wake up the pressure in me so that I can start to deal with it, because I know I'm going to be saying it. I know that I'm going to have expectation, so I can either pretend I don't, or what I actually do is the opposite. I fan those flames until it puts a sickening amount of pressure on me, and that way I can start dealing with it on the car ride and hopefully work through it before I hit my first wreck. Anyway, so different folks, but I know it's very funny. Yeah, what's first, second pay in this hog? Yeah, who are we gonna let through in the finals?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So we hop in the car. We drive out to West Salem.
How far is it, Sam? Is it 4 hours to West Salem?
I don't remember. Probably 3 to 4 hours seems right. I mean, everything in Wisconsin is 4 hours for me, so that seems about right. So we get to West Salem.
I'm just setting the table here for everybody. 4 hour drive, 3 hour drive.
Yeah, we had a lot of time to figure out what we're gonna do with our share of the loot.
And, we're gonna whack up all this money. Yeah, exactly.
So we get to West Salem. And I'll let you go, but I just want to give you my first reaction was, is this the right place?
No, yeah. So we pull into West Salem, and we're like, are we in the right town? Because like when you pull in to a billiard extravaganza that's supposedly juicy, that's just absolutely going to be like this payoff, this huge payoff. I'm thinking, like, when we pull into the small town in this, I'm thinking there's going to be like probably dozens and dozens of cars. Like they're just like, they probably have like people with airline flags, and they're just flagging in where to park. And there's like, everything's like set up in this giant parking lot. So we pull in, and there's nothing. Like there's no one, there's nothing. I'm like, we can't even be in the right town. Like there's no one even here. And like this thing starts at like noon, and we're rolling in like after 11 a.m. Like we're not like there 2 or 3 hours early. We're really close to start time. And when we get there, and there's no cars in the parking lot. There's nothing. And so so I was just like, compared to what we thought was going to happen after we made this huge drive. And then throw on top of that, we're running our numbers. We have this business plan. We're running the books. We're like, got our hotel paid on non-refundable. I mean, we're probably with the gas and the food. I mean, we might be 300 stuck just to get there, So here we are, like we got our bankrolls like exposed. We pull in for this tournament that's supposed to be this juicy extravaganza, and there's like no one's in the parking lot. And we're already stuck like 300.
Yeah, when we walked in, it's like there was like one guy tending bar and a bunch of empty tables with somebody like, and I was shocked. I was like, this is not a good sign. And then, yeah, I remember kind of, I'm trying to, so we go in there, and it felt like a weekly tournament where you're not sure if you're going to have enough people to start. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like there might've been like literally 2 or 3 people, and like maybe one of them didn't have his own queue. And it's like, it felt exactly like that. Like you're trying to get 6 people together for a tournament. And so I just remember, man, it was just funny. And I was just like looking at you like monkey tilted, like, what are we doing here?
And this was the first one of our new business. This was like the first one of our newly formed business attack on how we're gonna, picked good spots, and this is our first spot.
Should we leave the Balabushka in the car? It's that scene almost exactly. Yeah,
that's what I was just thinking. There's furniture everywhere.
There's furniture everywhere exactly, and you're Eddie. Should we leave the Balabushka in the car? So, man.
So, but then what happened is, some way, white magic, a bunch of people showed up, and we ended up taking second and third, and we did okay. So it all worked out. But it definitely, there was a moment of panic there where it didn't look like it was going to work out. And then I'll tell you my favorite part of the trip, which was what made this very memorable. Is at the time I was driving a Saab, little 5-speed, beater, and the headlight on the front left had burned out. So it's like the fog lights were still working, and I had one headlight and 2 fog lights, and my brights were working, which when you're driving, the middle of the night through rural Wisconsin, you can usually use your brights. So I'm like, shoot. So I didn't have a chance to fix the headlight, or I procrastinated. So I didn't have that headlight fixed, which was fine coming out. But now we're going to be driving back, after midnight, because, of course, tournaments run late. And we got to the final. So anyway, I'm like, well, but the problem with being a pool player is that when you're driving home from pool tournaments, it's like the same time that drunks are driving home from bars and the police are out in force. I mean, they're just like, you're always driving home. And it's kind of like, I don't know. Sometimes when you're like driving a long ways and you get caught, I always hate when you get caught in rush hour when you didn't really need to be in rush hour at that time, and you're not coming home from work or going to work, but yet you're caught in rush hour with a bunch of people that are. It always feels a little unfair. Like, hey, I'm not going to work. Why should I be stuck? But anyway, it's the same story. It's like I'm not drinking, but yet it's like 1 a.m, and I'm driving home from Wisconsin, or it's 12:30 or 1:30 or whatever it is, bar close time. And so we're driving back, and I see a cop car with the sirens, and I'm like, oh man. So I pull over. The police guy, walks up to my window, and what seems to be the problem, officer? And we go through this thing, and he's like, well, he's like, yeah, why I pulled you over? And he's, of course he's staring at me and trying to figure out, get a read on whether or not I've been drinking and stuff. And anyway, I explained, yes, my headlight went out. We have to get back to Minneapolis, but I'm going to get it fixed. And he kind of looked at me and made sure I was, good to drive and everything. And he didn't ticket me, but he's like, hey, you need to get that fixed. I'm like, yeah, no problem. So I get back in the car, we start driving home again, and I get pulled over again. Another cop car hits the sirens, and I'm like, oh God. I'm like, darn it. I think I'm going to drop an expletive in there. I'm like, all right. So now it's getting funny. Like, now I've got to give this police officer, the last thing I want to do when a police officer walks up to my car window is be like giggling. But I'm just like, man, this is unbelievable. Like, I know, officer, it's like, so, but then the funny part is I had to act like I didn't know. Like, I had to be like, oh, what seems to be the problem? Oh, really? My headlight? Oh, yeah. You know what? And then I kind of went through the whole thing again. And I'm like, hey, actually, you know what? I actually got pulled over. He said just to make it home. And so this police officer was like pretty cool about it. And he wrote me something showing that, not like a warning, but documenting that he'd pulled me over. That way, if anybody else pulled me over, I could show them that, he'd pulled me over and given me a warning. And so I'm like, okay, this is totally fine. So I get back in the car and I'm like, man, this is brutal. So we're driving it third time the sirens hit. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, and so I'm just trying, like, at this point, I've got like tears streaming down my eye. At the time, you got to understand, it's like 1:30 in the morning. It's a surreal experience. Yeah. It's a surreal experience where there's this procession, this never-ending procession of police cars. We're
like literally every 40 miles. Yeah. So we're trying to go 200 miles and we're just getting stopped. Yeah.
Yeah, and Josh is just looking at me like, why are we taking your car and your POS car? And I'm like, gosh. So anyway, the third cop pulls me over. It was like the hardest thing I've ever had to do, to just be like straight faced and just, he would have thought I was high if I just break down and start laughing. He's gonna bring me into detox or something. So anyway, I managed to hold it together, and I was biting my tongue and, gee, thank you, officer. Thank you I'm sorry about the inconvenience. I'll get this thing fixed. And we got her done. So anyway, that's what I remember about the trip, was just 3 times getting pulled over and having to treat each one like a new encounter. So good stuff. So those are the things that make life on the road. That was the beginning of our official partnership, was the juicy 9-ball extravaganza in West Salem. So
that's right.
All right. So on to our discussion. This is exciting. I think a lot of people here that listen to this podcast, especially, they're probably, a lot of them are practicing pool. They have tables at home. They're serious players. So we're going to get right into pool practice. And Josh, I'd like you to kind of lead off on this one. When you think about pool practice, what do you feel moved to start? Where do you want to start with that?
Well, I think there's a couple ideas that I've been thinking about most recently, right? So practicing, there's obviously playing with friends or playing with people in the in pool rooms or whatever, and either through warm up or putting sets together. But like practicing like solo is kind of what I'm thinking of in this instance. And there's drills, and then there's like ghost pool. I mean, those are the kind of areas that I wanted to kind of chat about and highlight and chat about with you, Demi. But as far as drills go, I just wanted to like talk about like what are we trying to accomplish when we're doing drills, right? Because what I see is social media, people posting their drills and showing the completed drill, which is great. Like if they're doing it and they're doing it correctly and what's intended, the way the drill is intended to be completed, then that's awesome. It shows you like a key on how to do the test, right? And you can watch it and review it for that reason. But I think what happens is people have a tendency, and myself included, I guess, like have a tendency to like get into like this, I have to complete this, and that's the critical thing. And so they can get caught up in a couple different things, which is they could sit there and grind the drill until they complete it, even though they have a very low success rate. Maybe they'll complete it once or twice out of 10 or 20 attempts or whatever. And so there's a lot of frustration that comes around. Also, they'll compare themselves to whoever they saw do the drill, and like, well, that person does the drill and they're smooth on it and all that stuff. And so I think what I'd like to talk about is I feel like I'd like to like, so when I'm drilling, what I've experienced is that I'm less the completion like window is up in the back of my mind, right? Like I want to get it completed, but the really what I want to do is figure out how the drill is supposed to be completed. And then if I can't do the drill right away, then I'll go to, like, without getting through it too many times, I'll start breaking that drill down in chunks. So if there's 10 balls with 10 transitions in this drill, for instance, I'll start like looking and seeing after, a certain amount of attempts, maybe 10 or 20 attempts, I'll get a gauge to what my completion rate is. And if it's low, then I'll start looking at where I'm falling short on that drill, and hopefully it'll be in a similar area of the drill. And then I'll start drilling in those areas, and I'll pull all the balls off the table and just drill those transitions. So
okay, so I just want to frame so that we have a couple general things, because I want to let you keep going on that. But some of the things you brought up are, what drills are we choosing and why are we choosing them? We talked up, you mentioned something that was kind of like, and I'm just kind of planting seeds that we're going to get back to, something about like success rate and how tough the drills we're taking on should be and things. And then, another thing you're talking about more specifically is, kind of how you work through a drill. And so basically what you're saying so far is that instead of trying to just bomb through it with 100 attempts until you get one where you manage to pocket all the balls, you're trying to like break down that drill and learn the techniques needed to actually have the skills to complete the drill the way it's supposed to be done. Keep going.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll get, that's great, Demi. So I do. Yeah. Yep. So I'm sorry, man. I kind of lost my thread there a second, but
yeah. So like we've done this 10 ball drill where we have the 1 through 5 on one end of the table, the 6 through 10 on the other end, and we're kind of going back and forth. And like we've done that a few times together where we're good enough players. We play Scotch doubles where we've gotten through it, but it's always been kind of like we get through it, but it's like, well, we had to make some jacked up power draw, and then we had to make some bombs away thin cut, and we kind of got fortunate to get an angle on this ball, and somehow we bombed in the 10 ball with a thin cut. It's like what you did with that one is like you went back and just set up, instead of trying to run through all the 10, you'd run through, you tried a few times, figure out where it's breaking down or what parts are tough, And then you just set up that one or two transitions and try it a few different ways and see which ones work. And then if there's a skill that's, that you're struggling with, then you'll just try to polish up that skill.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, exactly. And so that's what I feel like drills are really meant to do, is to like drill in these specific skills. And so it really isn't about the completion of the drill. It's about the drilling, the skills. So if you look at a drill with 10 shots and 10 transitions, if it's done quote unquote correctly, where you're not like pounding around 3 rails and like spinning stuff out, you're like, all drills or most drills have a key, like I was saying, like a right, correct way to do it, that you're supposed to be like drilling through these transitions or these shots that you're shooting that are difficult. And so if you're going through these drills and you're taking your time to build up those shots and those transitions, as a byproduct of all of those individual skills that you're learning, eventually someday or sometime you're going to be able to complete that drill, and that's great. But I think that it's the other way around for a lot of players, where they're like, I want to complete the drill, and as a byproduct, I'm going to pick up these skills by completing the drill. And it's like, I would say it's kind of the reverse. It's like, work on these skills, forget about the completion for a moment, and just work on the skills,
Well, it kind of reminds me of like anything. If we take pool out of it and we talk about training, like, you run and you've done some long runs. It's almost like if you look at somebody that runs a marathon, what you might see a picture of on the cover of a magazine or, whatever, for some charity fundraiser or some kind of race or whatever, you might see a picture of, people running across the finish line. That's what makes the paper, because what doesn't make the paper is, the morning 3 months earlier, where it was 5 a.m. and they get up and run, 5 miles through snow, or they're doing cardio on their own. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not what people take pictures of, but that's what leads. And if you look at the iceberg, if you look at what the pie chart of how much time people spend developing skills and training versus how much time they spend throwing their arms in the air, running across a finish line, it's like 100, it's 10,000 to 1. I mean, it's like, for every, you have to put in 1,000 hours of pool, training, practice, competition, driving the tournaments, sparring, before you have that minute where things pay off. And so there's actually a lot of lessons to learn about that, if you're, for people that are miserable when they train and then they think it's going to pay off someday, and the only time they're happy is when everything's coming together and they're playing great and winning, and that's what they live for. It's like that iceberg, that pie chart, has a moral to tell about, man, that's a miserable way to live. Like, you better love playing and practicing and training, because otherwise you picked a hard game, because it's going to be many thousands of hours of stuff you hate to get something that is going to be, you're going to get 20 likes on social media, and it's still not going to be good enough, and somebody's still not going to like the way you ran the ball. So that's one. I mean, there's a lot of morals to draw. But specifically to this, I'll just say, specifically to this situation, it's easy to look at social media and see people posting those completions and think that the goal is to just try to like blitz through this until I get my little picture of me completing it. Whereas what you're saying is, no, focus on the other part of the iceberg that's under the water, which is actually about like learning from this and developing a relationship with these skills. Yeah.
And you touched on something really important there, Dem, and I can speak to what you just said. Like, I'm a guy that struggles with what you just said, where it's like, I want the result. I want the completion. I want the pats on the back, whatever. It's like, I want to succeed, and it's like, so I've struggled my entire life and career with that, with pool. And what I'm saying is, like, I'm not saying these things because, I've got it figured out, and you just got to be zen and you just don't even think about the results. No. I mean, results are important, man. Like, at the end of the day, like, whatever, it's not about yardage, right? It's about getting it done. But when you're going through, specifically what I wanted to talk about was drilling and practicing, because I have such a unique and such a real strong like relationship with that misery. Like, I'm sharing, like, how can we do this without being in that, without as much misery? So it's almost like, there's pain that should be resulted in drilling and practicing. I'm a proponent of embracing misery and pain, for sure. But like, I'm trying to share with people, how can we do this and get that misery and pain threshold at the right equilibrium where it's enough to push us forward and keep us motivated, but not so much that we want to quit and not so much that we're discouraged.
Yeah, that's going to come into, we're going to talk, I want to come right back to that because that's going to tie in with like, there's those other questions like success rates and how we pick the drills we do. But before we do, when we're talking about like what we go through, I want to share, I understand that. And it's very interesting to go through like the shift from results and completion and mastery to like the process and the input. Instead of focusing on the output, we're focusing on the input. And one thing that happens is that my dad told me something once and I thought was really funny. He said that, like when you're watching like a Rocky, like training montage, you see all these training montages with people running up the stairs and a little 30-second, montage of them doing different training and it's playing inspirational music. Like he says that kind of inspiration gets you fired up, and those emotions last about 30 seconds. You get to the practice table and you're feeling all fired up and you start working and it's like 2 minutes later, you're like, oh my gosh, this is really a long, hard road. And it's not some 30-second training montage. Like this is real life. And and so what happens is that it's weird. It's weird how things shift because it's like expectations and reality. It's like those memes where you've got expectations and then you got reality. Like your expectations are, I'm going to do this drill. And you've got this picture in your mind of somebody who has successfully mastered this drill and now is armed with this arsenal of skills where they can just bust out through racks and all this stuff. And then you get to the table and it's like, you can't even get the drill going and you're struggling with breaking it away. And this road is like so long that the idea of like ever making that vision come to pass is just like, how does that even happen from here? And it's just like, it's like this cold shower because we all fall for it, man. It's like some trick where it's like we think it's just going to be a short blitz. And I can't relate to running marathons, but I like to hike in the mountains and I like to go on with my kids and we go on trips. And when we go on these long hikes, up a lot of elevation gain, like it's a long day of walking and hiking. And it's like, it's it's going to be long. And even if you've done this 100 times or 1,000 times, it's like every time it's like, oh yeah, I forgot how tough this is. And I forgot how long this road is. So one other thing I practiced, I'll just share my experience from this week. One other thing I practiced this week was I've been working a lot on my back cuts. I don't like back cuts. There's reasons I don't like back cuts, and there's reasons I prefer to play where I'm going into rails. When I play position to where I'm shooting balls and my cue ball's going into side rails, that unlocks side spin and it gives me more control over my cue ball speed and direction. So I often play where I'm, and for me, they're easier shots too. But back cuts are an essential part of the game, and sometimes I struggle with them. So I missed one, and I really know that that's a pain point. So I decided to kind of create a little exercise built around back cuts. And I won't set up the exercise exactly because it would sound like gobbledygook over a podcast. But I set up a little drill around back cuts where I had two balls that I'd make one and play 3-rail shape for the other. And then I'd going around, and then I'd spot up the first ball and make the second ball play 3-rail shape for the first ball. So anyway, I'm going back and forth, seeing how many I can run. And when I first started setting them up, it's like I wanted to get to the point. I had that vision where I am now the master of back cuts, and I have these shots look like complete, routine. I've got them on lock. Like that's the vision I had. It's like, when do I get to the part where I've got these things mastered? And instead, I'm just lost, and I'm just, completely missing, and I'm guessing, and I don't see any signs of any progress. That not only am I missing these balls and struggling with these shots, but I don't even, like, I can't even see the path. Like, I can't even see the finish line from here. All I can see is it leads down into some dark woods. And it's like, I know that somehow, some way I want to be at the top of the mountain where I have a clear view, but this road doesn't even look like it's leading in the right direction of the mountain. It's like, is this even the right path? And actually, I think that's another question, is like timelines and how long we should do stuff without seeing results, and when should we measure progress? That's another good question about drills, but we'll table that for a minute. But I'll just say that the point of this story is it was like a cold shower every time. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not just going to sit here and play some inspirational music, do this drill for an hour, and then have these back cuts mastered. Like I forgot about the 20-mile hike in between here and there. And so then it's like, I can let all that go, and I can just say, it's going to be a long hike. So I can just let go of all that. And I can just let go of any kind of thoughts about measuring progress. I just have to let all that go and just say, I am going to develop a relationship with this back cut, and it doesn't have to happen overnight, but I'm just going to have to miss this ball and awful. I'm going to have to fail on this a lot of times and enjoy the process of trusting a slow glacier-like transformation to take place over many sessions, because that's the reality.
Yep. And I would say, in addition to that, Demi, I would say, like, the other trap you can get in, like, why isn't this happening fast enough, is comparison. Like, comparing yourself to what you see on social media, or someone that posted a drill video, and it's just like, it's not about that. I mean, it's hard. I get it. It's difficult. We're all competitive. That's why we're practicing and trying to get better, because we want to, like, get there, and we want to, evolve our game and win and be there with our hands up at the end at the finish line. But comparisons are a super big trap. And so somehow, some way, if you can work it in your brain where you're practicing to get rid of those comparisons, and then when they come up, just somehow tamp them down or stuff them away, or at least, like, be aware that that's where you're getting trapped, and do that drill for the skill building, and not, this person does it this smooth, or this correctly, or this many times. It's like, just do it for yourself and learn the skills. And then, me, damn, volume. I believe that, like, going through these drills and doing these things, it's completion is it not that it's not important to have completion and success in these drills, but just going through these processes and figuring out the failed results of, like, that didn't work. Then when it does work, it clicks in and it stays. So I believe there's a lot of, like, brain development that happens just through the volume of doing these, even if they're not done, perfect or correct every single time. So,
well, yeah,
muscle memory stuff.
When you talk about comparison, I mean, it's really, really interesting, because where comparison can do two things that are really positive. One thing it can do is it can help identify the right areas to focus on, which is another, subtopic we're going to migrate into, is how do you even know what you should be working on? So comparison can be a good tool when it comes to diagnosis and, game planning, to do an accurate assessment of where you are compared to your peers, and put together a plan accordingly. So the comparison can be useful that way. And comparison can be useful, maybe, to some extent, as far as providing motivation. So if there's a way that you can extract some motivation and say, you know what, I see these other people have these skills, I know it can be done. If it kind of makes it like a stubborn, kind of get your dander up stubbornness, like, no, I'm determined. There are players that can do this, and I would like to someday be one of them. Like, those things can be positive. Okay. But then from there, like, that's what you get to use it for. You get to use it to help with, like, your planning, and then you get to use it to help with your determination, and then you have to let it go. And so that part of that. Yeah, go ahead.
And I would say that's totally fine. Like, to me, those are, like, it's a little bit of a slippery slope with that stuff, because if you use it too much, it's like, it can burn you out. It can just absolutely derail you and destroy you. I think definitely that type of competitive fuel is very, very useful, but I think that it's probably not, it's for everyone to decide for themselves, but I believe that you have to be careful with that fuel. That's all. Whatever the percentage of that fuel is, but yeah.
What I just said is you can use it. So at the very beginning is when in my opinion, you use that at the beginning. You use that to help determine your plan. That's at the onset. And then you use that to kind of get your dander up so that you're ready for the long hike. And then after that, you got to put it away and you got to let it go. And I was going to phase it, because it's almost like if you're building a fire, if you want to use a little newspaper kindling and, lighter fluid or whatever to kind of get your fire going, that's fine. But you can't keep a fire going on newspaper and lighter fluid. Like, that's not how you build a fire. You need to catch some logs on fire that are going to be like deep burners and kind of keep the thing going. And so I feel like comparison is like, you can use that as a jump start, but it's not a fuel you can maintain, because it leads to negativity. Go ahead.
Okay. So see, this is where we might, like, not totally split ways, Demi, but I definitely want to at least get this in, and then we could talk about it or not talk about it. But, like, see, like, I know that when I'm practicing, and I, like, there are times where I'll use that. I'll just keep throwing newspaper on during the process, like, and that's just being like, for me, I feel like that's being competitive, but I don't know, maybe as I get older, I'm doing less and less of it, but I could just see like, I'm out there, I'm practicing, I'm getting tired. I want to quit. And I can just like, it's like the carrot or the whip or whatever. It's like, I don't know. I probably use the whip a little too much because I think that's maybe what it can be too, is just like that comparison or like, these guys aren't out there doing this. I mean, I know that there's a lot of professional athletes and people that are highly competitive that use that as their fuel. So I just know from experience, like, I don't know, Dan, what do you think about that? Like, I mean, it's just hard, man. I struggle with it. I struggle with that, man.
Well, yeah, and we can struggle with that. We can also struggle with lack of motivation and action, and that leads to a huge. I mean, then it leads to like motivation and goal setting, and then it leads to which is better. Do you want to be a miserable, crazy SOB that hits a high level of something and lives a miserable life and feels unfulfilled and dissatisfied, or do you want to be, would you rather be fulfilled and content and not be, if the cost of that was not like, and it's really, and this is really, really weird. It's like, which would you rather be? Miserable, chasing an illusion of an accomplishment that you think will bring happiness that never does, but then you at least hit that accomplishment that doesn't make you happy and that led you a miserable life? Or would you rather be the guy that is actually like kind of content and fulfilled? But then the other guy could be like, well, yeah, but you didn't do as much. But then it's like, yeah, but I enjoyed my life, and like it's anyway. So this, and then it brings up like, is that even necessary to be miserable, or can you look at guys like Efren that seem to play with some type of joy and passion? I mean, I look at Fedor, and I look at they don't look miserable to me. They look like they're having fun pursuing a game that they love, and is it necessary? So there's all these different ways it can go. But I want to answer the specific question is, when it comes to judgment and comparison, they're not the same things. So when people hear comparison, I think that you hear like, I'm this and they're that, so therefore I'm a piece of garbage, or I can't let them win, or I gotta. So it's like, if judgment or comparison doesn't necessarily have to have emotion and judgment attached. So I use comparison. I'm not saying I'm the Buddha. I'm not saying I'm judgment free. But if I use comparison, I'm using it more analytically. Like, hey, here's where I'm at. Here's where these people are at. Here's some things that are different. What are some things that make sense to do? I'm not necessarily doing it like, well, they could do this and I can't, so therefore it's terrible. But then if I can learn to do this, then it'll be awesome. And then it's like, I'm not all so I think there's a difference between a detached clinical comparison for diagnosis and maybe for some goal setting and some motivation versus like some type of judgment and all that. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. There's a lot of ways you could go from there, and we're probably not going to get through it all. But what are your thoughts you wanted to share? I'm sorry.
Oh, no. That's okay. We're turning around back to different paths, but like, I like what you just said there, Dem. I do. I think it's hard, man. Like overall, like my overall idea on these things we're talking about is like, it's tricky to balance, man. I've had a tricky time balancing it my entire competitive career. And so I think it's just like a lot of the stuff you're talking about or we're talking about, like it's important to think about. So when you're out there practicing and doing these things and competing, like you have to figure out, where your fuel's coming from, and is that fuel making you happy or miserable? And is it okay to be a little bit miserable because you're willing to go through a little bit of that misery to get closer to where you want to be, if that's what it needs, So
yeah, and that's
each person needs to determine for themselves, I think, a little bit.
And there is a role, because we could get into excuses about why people don't work hard, and you could take it too far where you're like, well, I don't want to be one of these people that's like using rage and self-criticism to motivate myself. So therefore, but the answer is not to be unmotivated and not develop yourself, because there is a purpose, and there, and pool, there is more purpose in pool. I mean, there's something profoundly important about being your best self and being the best version of yourself and doing something excellent if you're going to choose to take it on, and all these different things. And so, but one thing, getting right back to where this really came from, is you were talking about it's not so important about completing the drill as so much as developing the skills. And so I wanted to talk about the benefits of failure, is that even if you're doing these drills, if you're not focused on, once you get past, you've lit your fire, you're no longer hung up by comparison, you're not beating yourself up, you're not sitting there trying to rush through it so you can post a picture on YouTube or whatever. You're not, you get yourself to where you're just engaged in the work, developing a relationship with these skills. And even if it doesn't come together the way you wanted it to, you are growing. Because here's the beautiful part about comparison is that compared to where you were when you started, like it doesn't have to look like Thorsten Homan makes it look. It just doesn't. Because in the end, if you go through and once you let go of this and you're ready for the long hike and you spend, whether it's a couple sessions, one session or a few sessions or a few weeks or whatever, working through some techniques and drills, then you will be a different person than you were when you started it. And it may not look like the guy on, that you had in your head when you first started, the guy that you wanted to be when you first started doing this drill, but it's looks different than it would be had you not done this at all. That's the point. And that's the whole point.
And that's who you need to compare yourself to, yourself. Like, are you progressing and moving forward? And yeah, that's it, man. Are your percentages increasing? Are you improving? Are you getting better? Are you learning about yourself through that process too?
100%. So we talked about we're kind of talking about some traps that people fall into when they practice. And so I guess so far we've identified one trap, which is focusing too much on results and comparison and being result oriented and being comparison driven versus kind of finding a deeper relationship with building skills and approaching the drills to actually learn the lessons. And so, for example, just as an example, we saw a student complete a drill where he set up a drill and he completed it. And then, by the way, I mean, good job for him. Like, he has developed some skills that he would not have been able to complete this drill before my 3-day boot camp, patting myself on back. But it's true. But anyway, so he completed this drill. And so we were both simultaneously proud of him for doing it. But then the way he did it was there was a lot of it was really crisp, but then there were some parts where it was a little sloppy and he didn't really know what to do and he just kind of bombed through it. And so you encouraged him to go back and work on those specific transitions and those specific shots until he could do the drill again and complete it where it looks like gymnast-like and really tight. And that was great advice. And so I guess what we're talking about for traps is trying to get out of the results mindset, try to get into the process mindset and focus on learning the lessons that drill teaches, and then not comparing yourself to people that have those skills like Thorsten Homan, but rather, and even if you can't put those skills together exactly the way you want, it's still growth. So I think 1, not result oriented, and 2, you can still grow even if it's not stunningly successful the way you thought it would be. So those are the 2 points we've made so far. Now, you've hinted around about success rate. Talk to me, because and that's actually kind of a sub part of how do you choose the right drill? Like, what should they be drilling, Josh? That's because success rate rolls up into, that's a mistake people make. And another mistake people make is what they're working on and what they're trying to accomplish. So which one do you want to tackle first, or what are your thoughts on that?
Gosh, that's I'd almost leave it's hard, man. Cause it's like that's what you do for a living, man, is you teach people what they need to work on. And so you got to get with the right person that can analyze where you need to shore up, it gets stronger. So there's some general drills and things, but so I don't know, man, that one is just there's a wide range.
Well, let me talk about that for just a minute then, and then we'll get into success rates and some different traps. So when it comes to picking what to work on, I think what we're talking about is some general pitfalls today of things that people do wrong. And I think it's easier to talk about what not to do sometimes than it is to talk about what to do. I think what you should do is try to be extremely objective about where your game is at, where it's stronger than average, where it's weaker than average. So for example, if you're a 600 Fargo rate player, you have 100 600 Fargo rate players together. If you looked at their average abilities and a number of different skills, like certain shots or certain cue ball maneuvers or certain abilities, maybe, there's going to be some things that you do way better than 600 Fargo rate. And then there's going to be some things that you do a little poorer than 600 Fargo rate, because it's not like we're all just carbon copy robots. So what I like to do is try to figure out, okay, you're a 600. what skills do you have that are actually like 650 to 680? What are the strengths that you have that allow you to really, really, like when you're winning tournaments and you're winning matches and when you're playing well and you're running people over, what are your strengths that are like, ha ha ha, because of these strengths, ABC, these are the things that allow me to really be successful when I'm playing well. Those are your strengths. And then what are the things XYZ that you're not as good at that are, when you compare, if again, I'm not saying compare in a judgment way, but just from an analytical way, when you look at how other 600s play, what are things where you're like, man, it seems like everybody else, I'm able to play with all these guys, but they do XYZ and I struggle with those things. And it's like, I can play these guys, I can beat them all the time, but man, they do these things better than me. Maybe I just don't do that very well. Or I'm underdeveloped here. So now that in my opinion is a better way of diagnosing your game than, so it's because now you have some, hey, here's my strengths and here's some things I'm not as good at. Now, what to do with that information, of course, you don't want to just obsess about things you're not good at and beat a dead horse and stuff. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be expert level at every part of your game to be successful. So just because you know that your strengths are ABC and your weaknesses are XYZ, that's not to say that the answer is to go drill Z forever. Like, that's not what I'm saying, but at least that's a starting point where you could start to put together an objective and analytic and strategic approach to how you're going to want to shape your time. That being said, what the mistakes I see people make are, they have a story that they have and it's okay to have a story, but like a narrative about something as opposed to being analytical. So for example, there's two ways to look at it. One is the way I just described. Okay, I'm strong XYZ, or I'm strong ABC, I'm weak XYZ. I want to make sure I spend some time polishing up my strengths, ABC, so they're at the ready. And then I want to spend some time trying to mitigate some of the parts of XYZ that I feel like in gameplay have actually cost me the most opportunities. And then I want to spend some time playing and putting it all together by just playing Ghost and running tables. Like, okay, that's a sensible approach. Fine. But it's when people kind of get weird where they just say, they can't see their game objectively. And they think that, well, the answer to great pool is perfect fundamentals. And so I'm going to shoot in 1,000 straight shots every day for a year. And when I come out the other side, I'm going to be Superman and I'm just going to win. And it's like, that's weird. It's like, what? Like, this is very common, very, very, very common that people, they make up a story about, I am going to do XYZ heroic thing. And at the end of which I'm going to be invincible. And then they just pick something, and it could be fundamentals, or it could be like some type of shot that they want to work on, or some type of skill where they're like, this game is all about if you develop a powerful, accurate stroke, so I'm going to shoot these long draw shots, and I'm just going to draw the ball till I'm Roberto Gomez or Jeff DeLuna, and then everything will fall into place. So in the first example I gave was being kind of strategic, analytical, objective, and like curious and prodding and diagnosing. The second one is just making up a story, which is, I'm just going to hammer this thing until I'm a hero. And it's like, that's where I think a lot of people make mistakes choosing what to do, is that you just pick the story. Just because you tell yourself a story doesn't mean it's true, because maybe you'll practice that 1,000 times a day for a year and you still won't be good at it, because that's actually a shot that nobody in the world ever really gets that good at. And it doesn't actually relate that well to delivering an overall balanced game and competition. And so maybe that wasn't really geared right for your use of time and for your abilities. And so that's something I see people do wrong a lot, is just kind of picking hero narratives where they're going to do this phenomenal thing and they're going to put their head down and do something forever and it's going to pay off somehow. And you can tell yourself that story, it doesn't make it true. What are your thoughts on that, Josh?
Yeah, that's interesting, Down, because I've always been a guy that just has been like, just tell me what to do. Like, just tell me what to do. Like, so I played a lot of golf when I was a kid, and I struggled with golf. I could hit the ball a mile, and I had a lot of kind of skills. But I couldn't, got cut from the high school golf team, couldn't play at all. The level I wanted to play or thought I needed, and I didn't know how to get better, Tim. That was the thing. It's like, but I had all these narratives about like, oh, if I do this or that, I mean, everything you're talking about, I probably did, but ultimately what I settled on was, I need to find a coach. I need to get someone that can just tell me what to do, and then I will just do what they tell me what to do, and then I'll just put in the work. So I think that's a little bit of the trickiness with trying to improve a pool, and that's where people get caught up in these narratives, is that they don't have someone they could go to that'll like, that they can trust, man, that they can trust, and that they can just push their chips in and say, I'm going to do what this person says I'm going to do. And when I come out the other end of it, if I do pretty much what they say they do, and I tell me to do, and I put in all this work, like I'm going to be a better player. And so that's my like first thought, I guess. And then, well, go ahead. I don't know if you want to jump in there.
Yeah. So it's interesting because there is a balance, and I don't want to minimize the importance of the powerful narrative and of like, I am going to, like there's a lot of value, and for sure that anybody that picks something where they're going to put in endless hours and then they actually go through with it, like for sure. I mean, in terms of motivation and determination and sense of narrative and purpose and all, I mean, they're going to get a lot out of it. And so I'm not saying that that's not the answer. I'm not saying that's the wrong. I'm not saying that's not a useful approach in terms of motivation. And it's like there's the engine and then there's direction. There's the steering wheel, there's the engine. Like that's good for engine, but it's not necessarily good for steering wheel. And so for steering wheel, it helps to be like just a little bit connected. And not everybody has a great coach, but but you could kind of see like, there's a lot of things you could do. You could watch matches of yourself on a stream or video record a session and actually figure out like, what are the things that are breaking down? Not everybody's good at diagnosing though, because every run ends with a miss and every miss ends with a miss hit ball. So you could boil every single thing you could boil down to, well, I didn't stroke that ball well. And that's where a lot of people get stuck on that. And
yeah.
And but anyway, I think if you're just a little, here's what I would say. You have skills. Pool's a game of rounding out and developing a compilation of skills that work together. And if you can understand that and really look at which skills you want to work on, and then understand that drills are like going into a weight room, going into a fitness center, and every machine has a different muscle it builds. The row works the back muscles and this works that. It's like, you don't just go in there and start throwing stuff around or look up on Facebook what some guy did and then follow his routine because he's a power builder and you're not. And you also don't go there and just sit there and say, I'm going to literally bench press nonstop for a year until I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, none of those things make sense. That's not how anybody would tell you to do it. So what would they tell you to do is they tell you to, number one, if you can, work with a personal trainer that can actually look at where you're at, where you want to be, and put together a plan to get there, which is me, by the way, as far as pool goes. But then if you don't do a personal trainer, that's fine. But at least look up, give some thought to like, what muscles are you trying to build? What type of routine? How much time do you have? How hard do you like to work out? And what's a good way to work through a rotation? How many sets of how many different things are you going to do to get a good workout in? And I think that so some people with pool, they do the thing where I'm just going to bench press for 2 years and then we'll see how good you are. It's like this attitude, like I'm going to bench press for 2 years, then we'll see who's in good shape. It's like, go ahead and do that. And then the other thing that people do is that they just pick stuff that looks cool. Like there's a lot of people that talk about drills. Like, have you seen this drill? Have you seen that drill? And it's just like a bunch of balls laid out, frozen to rails. And it's like, well, you got to shoot them all in an order, or you can't, it's like, okay, that's just like going to a gym and saying, we're just going to throw a bunch of stuff around. It's like, I don't know, what skills, what muscle group are we targeting? What skills are we actually targeting? And how is this actually going to implement in your game? So in summary, what I'd say is you want to be able to at least by knowing that trap, it's not going to give you all the answers, but by avoiding those pitfalls and having some of the right questions to ask. Where am I stronger than my peers? Where am I weaker than my peers? How much time do I have to put in? What types of stuff do I want to work on? And then let's see if we can't find drills that are actually geared towards developing specific skills that are going to help me either build my strengths or help me shore up some of these things that have been holding me back. And I feel like when I train pool, I'm very, very good at doing those things, not just figuring out where people need to spend time, but also finding exercises that actually strengthen specific skills as opposed to just try to complete drills and check off green boxes.
Yeah. And it just comes down to effectiveness, Dem. It's like, it's not about the completion. It's not about like comparisons, all those things we're talking about. It's about effectiveness. It's like, are you developing effective skills for your game? It's like, there's that drill where they got 5 racks of 75 balls out there. And it's like, I'm just like, yeah, I'm just like, I'm supposed to go out and buy 5 racks of balls and sit there and like do this landmine drill. And I'm like, is this effective? Like, is this going to help me? Like, really? Like, yeah, it might help me with one shot, but like it's fine. It's cool. I like, it's great. It looks cool. It's just, I just looked at that thing when I saw it and I just was like, this is just like, to me, this is just my journey and my thing. I'm just like, this, like I could do that with 2 balls, like I don't need 75 balls out there. So, and
this
I don't
is
know.
A great, so then this, what you just touched on is people doing things. There's 2 different reasons to take on a drill. One is to actually see a lift in your pool game and an improvement in certain skills that are going to lift your pool game. The other one is because of a narrative, a hero narrative or a hero story where at the end of completing this drill, you get to beat your chest like King Kong and roar. And it's like, and so it's easy to get suckered into doing stuff where it's like, when I have done that, I will be awesome and cool, like so-and-so in this, video. But it's like, but the best test is to let go of all that stuff and just go back to like, what are the things that are actually going to help me lift my game? And if you can answer now, if there's a good reason that running, that packing the table with like 400 balls, where it's like one of those things where, have you seen those things where you've got 16 slots and 15 numbers and you have to slide them around the little grid and get them to line up? It's like, if you want to play pool where it's like, you don't, everything, you have hundreds of balls on the table. And if you really feel like after an honest diagnosis of your game and some really looking at your skills, that you feel like working around 74 blocker balls, it's like, that's really going to be the fastest road for you to hit your pool goals. Like, if you feel that way, really, then go ahead. But if it's just kind of like this thing where it's like, I'm going to do stuff harder than everybody else, and at the end, I'm going to be better than everybody else. That not necessarily, because true greatness doesn't come from the flashiest exercise machine. It comes like, you don't have to worry about the guy that goes into the gym that's doing some like 6-prong maneuver that he learned from some fancy video on how to work out. It's like, fear the guy that just shows up every day, does a normal workout, puts in a good burn, and rotates through and hits the right muscles consistently. It's like, that's the guy that's going to get where he wants to go. That's what I think.
Yep.
So then that's really awesome. So talk to me about success rate. You mentioned this. What are your thoughts on that being a trap, as far as how difficult should people be? How difficult should the drills be that people are taking on?
Okay. So the drills can be as difficult as they want, but you just have to let go of success rate and work on the skills. That's it. If you want to do the landmine drill and buy 5 racks of balls, that's totally fine. Just work on the little, take it 2 or 3 balls at a time, or 5 groups, like whatever. Like whatever drill you're doing, just chunk it down, and that's the way I look at it. So the success rate of the drill can be, it can be 20%, but just relax on it and know that it's impossible for you to mentally feel good if you're losing 80% of the time. So just look at it differently and chunk it down. So as far as drills go, like, that's the way I look at drills. I don't know, like, I would like to like stick in the drills that I could do a higher percentage of the time, like at least to completion once in a while. So I think, percentages for drill, like that back and forth drill that we do down with the 5 on the end, the 5 on the other end. I mean, we do that Scotch and stuff. Like, I do that on my own, and it's like, I've broken that drill down, and that's what I talked about with that guy. And so, like, I don't know what my success rate on that drill is, but it's pretty decent. It's probably, I don't even know. Like, when we first started doing it years ago, I mean, maybe it was 20%. I mean, I broke that drill down now, where if I had to do it and beat it for money, I'd probably take the bet. And so maybe better than 50%. But so what I'm saying is, like, that's a process of building that drill from like 20 to 50. But I guess what I'm saying is, I think you want to be trying to succeed more than you're losing. And so that's not a drill that I sit there and line up and just work and do lose, or any drill. I guess I'm not going to set up and just try to do it to completion and do it 1 out of 10. That would drive me nuts, and I'd want to quit. So the thing that I'm thinking about more than drills is ghost. And so,
yeah, so let's come back to the ghost, because I know where you're going with that, but I'd like to talk a little bit about drills, because I think I could break it down to there's a difference between success rate on drills versus if you're practicing a certain shot. So if you, let's just say you wanted to set up work on your draws, you're going to set up a shot and just practice making the ball and drawing your cue ball. I think that the success rate, if you're practicing a specific shot, your success rate should be at a minimum 50%. And it could be as high as 80% and as low as 50%, but no lower. Because what happens is, if you set up a really difficult shot thinking, I'm going to learn this shot, and then after I learn this shot, everything will be easy. The problem is, if you're miscuing and scooping the cue ball and you're framming your cue stick and developing bad habits and just, it's like you're not necessarily, if your success rate is 10-20%, like you're not building confidence and you're not practicing good habits, and it's just not very effective. Whereas if you pick something you could do 80%, like 80% sounds like, oh, that's too easy. But it's like, no, that means that you struggle to do it, because that means that like 1 in 5 times you fail. And that means like 3 of the other 4 times it was difficult. You know what I mean? Like that's actually pretty hard. Like 80% success rate on a shot, it actually means it's pretty hard. And so I think practicing shots that you can do more of the time, but then the goal is to massage. The goal is to take shots that are 60% and massage them to become 80%. That's the goal of practicing a shot. You're not trying to take shots you can't do and learn how to do them overnight. I mean, exactly. And so one good way to do that, to ensure that you're always at 50%, is using progressive drills, where every time you succeed, like for example, on a draw shot, maybe you start off 2 diamonds away. And then every time you succeed, you move your cue ball back 2 inches. And every time you mess up, you move your cue ball forward 2 inches. And that way you reach these thresholds where you get to a certain point and your failure rate starts to go above 50%. But then as you fail, you automatically move back to where you're successful, so you can kind of build confidence and have some success and not just fail. So anyway, whether you choose to do progressive drills or just set up a shot, make sure that if you're drilling a specific shot, you're at least 50%. I'd actually recommend 75 or higher. And then at the same time with drills, where it gets really weird is you might fail at a certain drill a lot of the time, but as far as completing the drill. But now we have to look at the building blocks of those drills are the individual shots that lead up to them. So if you have a drill that's 10 balls where you're supposed to run them a certain way, if you're failing to complete the drill, that's fine, as long as you're successfully executing the skills that are needed in that drill. So for example, because ultimately that drill is going to boil down to 10 shots that are going to range from 0% to 100%. And so if that drill is a series of 80% shots that you have to link together, you might fail at that drill most of the time, because it's hard to link up 80% shots in a row. But as long as you're successful in the shots a lot of the time, and you're successful in executing correctly the skills that drill is teaching you. So, for example, if you've got some drill where you're practicing high inside 3-railers and you're running balls down the rail with high inside, and then you're getting different angles where sometimes you're full, sometimes you're thin, sometimes the balls are closer or further from the end rail. If you have a series of like 8 shots like that you have to, maybe you put 2 balls on each portion of the side rail, so you got 4 balls on each side rail, and your cue ball starts in the middle, and you got to run the balls closest to the corners first, and then the balls furthest from the corners next. And you got to hit the end rail every shot. So you're always using high inside 3 rails. Okay, fine. We just made up a little high inside 3-railer exercise. If you're succeeding on hitting these high inside 3-railers at 80% or 75%, where you're, or at least over 50%, where sometimes you miss the first ball, sometimes you make 3 in a row, sometimes you make 2 in a row, one time you made 6. You've never completed the drill, but you're like getting better at that shot, and you're making the individual shots at a high clip, and you're correctly executing the skills that drill is teaching. Then that's fine. It doesn't matter if the success drill, like we talked about, you might never make that drill, but you're going to be better at those shots than when you started. The key is that not just the individual shots are over 50%, but the skills that drill wanted to teach you. On the other hand, if you're playing a drill where there's a specific technique needed to run through that drill, and you can consistently make the first 2, 3, 4 shots, and then you just break down because you you've not made progress on developing the skills that drill is trying to teach you, so that your success rate on the shots might look good, but you're actually not really developing any of the skills needed, then that's probably not a very effective drill. And maybe it's too tough for you. What are you actually developing the skills that you need to complete the drill? If not, is it because it's too much to take on right now? Are those skills out of your reach? Should you be finding a smaller step towards those skills, or is there a better exercise that can actually help with an intermediate level drill that more directly targets those skills? So these are some of the things I think about when it comes to success rate. Individual shots should be 50%. If you're doing a complex drill, I don't really care about the success rate of the drill. I care more about, are you learning the skills needed and succeeding at those skills enough to be building confidence?
Yep. And I would just echo it, Demi, or just like say, hey, try to my thing is I'm trying to stay in that 70% plus range with things. So if I'm breaking down on a drill, I'll break down 2 or 3 transitions and I'll do them until they're 70%, and then I'll move on. So it's like if they're 50% or 40%, that's fine, but I just want to try to increase those percentages. Where if they're super low percentages, then I just need to do something else, because that's just not the right shot. Just like like you said, if you're sitting there trying to turn 20% into 25% or 30%, it's not that it's not going to help you, but it's just, you can't live in that space. You can't live in a losing mindset, a losing space. You got to make things difficult and be getting better, but you want to be up on the higher end of that curve where you're feeling good and you're feeling motivated and keep going,
Yeah. So I'd say succeeding with a good attitude on an easy drill at a 70% rate is better than failing miserably at a tough drill at a 0% rate. Like, you're going to get more by having fun and being successful. So if what you're doing isn't working, take it down a level, and it's better to just, don't let ego or what you did a month ago or 6 months ago or whatever stand in your way. Just back. And it's one of the hardest things to do. It's one of the hardest things to do, because your feelings will tell you that if you want to get good, the fastest way to get good is take on as much challenge as possible. So it's like, let me just make I learned a lot from my dad, I guess. He always called it the lazy man's load, when instead of making 2 or 3 trips, you try to load up your arms so you're staggering around with one big thing where you're going to fall down the stairs and you can't open up the door. He said, that's the lazy man's load. It's easier. Just make 2 trips, bro. He's like, just make 2 trips. And it's like the same kind of idea. It's easy to just want to take on this, I'm just going to find a way to will myself through this really, really tough thing. And it's like, what you're really saying is, it's actually fear. You are afraid that you won't ever get there. So it's kind of like a desperation shot. It's like you're trying to do this one really heroic thing, because that shows a lack of confidence in your ability to take a more mundane, boring road that actually leads somewhere, which is level by level, day by day, slow and sure. It's like you're trying to just take this one big hero swing at it and hit a grand slam. What you're basically saying is you're afraid to actually take a journey, because you don't actually have faith that you can stick to it or that it'll actually work for you. So you're going to just try to hit the grand slam home run and just find a way to make this one drill work. And then you're going to fail and feel like you tried. And it's like, no. Let go of all that. Let go of all that. Because here's the thing, and this is something I really believe. The slow, boring road works for everybody. And I think that's it. I think that if you do the slow, boring road and tone it down to where it's easier than you think it needs to be, so that you can actually be successful and work on stuff that you already feel like isn't that hard for you, but you get a little bit better at it, like that is a much better path. And that it doesn't matter. And that there's not winners and losers. It's like there's people that follow the road and people that don't. And that is actually the road. And the only people that aren't winners are people that believe that road won't work for them, and so they either never bother to try, or they go on these hero quests that don't lead anywhere. And it's like, nope, don't let self-doubt bully you into thinking that you shouldn't try, or that the only way it's going to ever work for you is if somehow magically you hit some grand slam. It's like, nope, take the boring path. Believe that if you put in the input, you'll get the output.
Mm-hmm. So
cool. So now
awesome.
You're talking about Ghost. What do you got about Ghost?
Okay. So, I had shout out to Brian Brecky. So Brian, watched a match I had and gave me some feedback, and he's like, man, you're doing everything correctly. He goes, I just think you're 1,000 or 2,000 games away of rotation from where you'd be pretty dynamic, you know? And so that was like an interesting suggestion to me. And so he's like, you know, pick a number of ghost balls, and we determined at my level where we thought that number of balls would be. And so I looked at it, Demi, and I set out on this journey, and I'm like, okay, I've got 3,000 games that I want to get in. That's, you know, if I play X amount of games per day against the ghost, then it's going to take me this many months or whatever. And so that seemed daunting, right? Because if I thought about the 12 ball ghost or the 11 ball ghost or whatever, it's like, it just seemed daunting. And I've played a lot of ghosts prior to this last suggestion from Brian, and I would always play, and then I would just get like overwhelmed or bored or frustrated if the ball's tied up or whatever. And so playing 1,000 games that way just seemed awful to me. And so I realized that I would never get through those 3,000 games unless I lightened the load and I made it easier. And I was confident while I was playing and feeling good. And so I came up with a plan for myself, and I'm like, I am going to lighten the load on this so that I have a number of balls on the table that I'm comfortable with, and that I have to pay attention to get through. But you know, they're not necessarily tied up. There's not like a bunch of like super difficult transitions. There's going to be some, but not like overly so. And so my idea was, I want my success rate to be at least 70%. And if I do that, I know that I'll be able to go out and hit through these racks, and I will know that the pitfalls that I had before about, you know, playing 5 racks and quitting out of frustration, because balls are tied up and there's too many balls and it's just too hard mentally and grueling to sit there and grind through. Like, I knew that I couldn't maintain that for months and months and months and every night. And then also with my lifestyle, you know, it's like I was aware of how much work I have on my plate with physical work that I have to do to provide for my family and my kids and my wife and what everyone needs, and interruptions and all that stuff. And so I was like, hey, I think 70% is the number. So I think that's where I need to be in my ghost number of balls. And I just think that it's got to be light. It's got to be like not a walk. Like, I'm not going out every night and walking because I run, right? And so there's a reason I'm not a walker. I want the extra, you know, endorphins and the challenge and whatever. So I run, but I'm not sprinting and I'm not running hard, and I'm not like heart rate monitor and look at me and I'm doing wind sprints and all that stuff. It's like I'm just running for these other reasons, you know, to maintain and to build slowly. And so it's like, I feel like pool's kind of that way, and ghost is that way. It's like, I would suggest what's worked for me, if you want to try it, is find a number of ghost balls that works for you at like, so that you're beating the ghost like at a, you know, 7-3 to 7-4, 7-5 rate even, so that you're winning almost every set you play. I mean, I've dumped sets out of those 1,000. I've dumped sets at that, you know, but most of the time I looked over the first 500 racks and I was probably averaging, you know, like a 7-4-5 or 7-5. And then the thing for me was, I wanted to take and decrease the ghost number that I was giving up and increase my percentage of success. And so, but I'm still in that high success rate, you know, and I'm still kind of in that light workload thing. So what I did was I went and I looked after 500 or 1,000. I retested myself and played 100 games in one day, and I had a goal to, you know, get like a 7.25, like, you know, average or whatever. And so I did that, and it worked out. And yay, look at me, I did it. And it, like, a person could go back and look at it and say, well, you don't have enough balls on the table, or you don't this, or you don't that, or why are you making it so easy, or like you're acting like you did something. And it's like, the bottom line is, I don't care how many ghost balls and 11 ball and 12 ball drills that other people are doing. I looked at my journey over that month and said, shoot, man, I went from giving up 4.5 down to 2.5, or 4 down to 2.5. It's like, I got better, you know, and I improved, and I got all that volume in. And if I would have made it too difficult, if I would have tried to like have too many balls on the table, I wouldn't even got those 1,000 games in. And so that's it. Just I don't know. I'm done. You could tell me what
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff there, but it's like, the main thing is you understand, it's like you're self-aware enough and like, hey, what needs to happen to where I will end up putting in the time I need to in an effective way. Like it's time times effectiveness. Like really, it's time times effectiveness. And if you're not effective, it doesn't work. And if you don't put in time, it doesn't work. And so then if you pick something ineffective, then you don't want to put in the time, and it definitely doesn't work. So what that is a story of is like knowing yourself and knowing what's effective and knowing what's going to be, something that you can sustain and actually do. And I guarantee you that doing what you did it was infinitely more effective than getting frustrated and not doing it. You know what I mean? It was like not even close. And
yeah.
You're hitting the ball to the boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's awesome. Yeah. So then a couple things. First of all, one fun variation. If you find a ghost that you're about 75% success rate at, one fun variation, and there's two types of people. Like I'm not as organized with stuff where like I don't want to keep track of like racks and win percentages. And I mean, I've got a whiteboard and a notebook, and I've tried at times to try to I think it would be cool if I was the kind of guy that was like really, really like written plans and like broken structured practice exactly and what my success rates are. But I'm not that guy. I'm kind of more of a feel through it type person. So for me, one thing I like to do is if I have a drill or success where I'm about 75%, say the ghost, and I was talking about the ghost. If I have a level of ghost where I'm about 75%, instead of playing a race to 5 against the ghost, to me, it's like, I know that I'm likely going to win. And here's the thing, if I'm up 3-1 and I feel like, well, if I miss, then I will, I get other chances because I know I'm ahead. So I started doing something where I would flip 2 coins. And if either one of them came up heads, the ghost wins that rack. So what I would do, for example, so I'm alternating. So I'll play a race to 5 where I'll go, say I'll flip to see who goes first. And then if I go first, I get to try to run the balls out. And if I do, I'm up 1-0. And then I flip 2 coins for the ghost. And if either one of them comes up heads, the ghost wins that rack. And so then I have to beat the ghost at a race to 5. Where if I don't run out, nothing happens. The ghost doesn't win. I just don't advance my coin. But then the ghost gets a free chance to flip. Now the ghost's turn to flip 2 coins. If one of them's heads, then they win. And so it's a weird thing because I could actually run the first 4 racks, but then still flip heads on both, one of the 2 heads on the first 4 ghost racks, and it could still be 4-4. So I could play 4 racks, run out every time, and still be hill. Or I could miss the first rack and then flip 2 tails, and it's still 0-0. And so anyway, it's an interesting way to where, because the only thing about playing the ghost for me is if I know that if I get up 3-1 and I know I have a good success rate, if you're doing it, what you're doing works, which is saying, I don't just want to win. I want to hold the ghost to a certain margin, and I'm keeping stats and I'm keeping track. That works for you. What works for me is creating a situation where I have uncertainty about how many opportunities I'm going to get, which is more for me like a match play. And so anyway, it's a weird idea. I just wanted to share it because I've been having some fun with it, which is playing the ghost, but you don't lose if you don't run out. But every time whether you run out or not, every single time the ghost has a chance to score, and then you have to keep up with the ghost, and you don't know if you're going to run good or bad, if the ghost is going to run really good on you or not. So anyway, that's the coin ghost variant. So whatever, for what that's worth for people that are weird like me. But okay. Anyway, what I also want to talk about is the value of the ghost, what it's for. One thing that's a little bit dangerous about drills is that, or ghost, if you're doing it wrong, say there's 4 skills, A, B, C, and D. And let's just say you're really good at A, B, C, and you're not so good at D. If you set up a challenge to where there's like a bunch of different at-bats, if what you do is you succeed at A, B, C, so anytime the ghost layout, we'll just talk ghost, anytime the ghost layout arranges themselves to where you can navigate through that layout using just A, B, C, you run out. And anytime those balls arrange to where you would need skill D to be successful, you fail. Well, if your success rate is 70%, and 70% of the time, the balls lay out to where you can run through those balls with just skills A, B, C, then you're going to succeed at 70%. And anytime that the ghost layout requires skill D, you're going to struggle and fail. So you're running out 70%, 70%, 70%. Are you actually developing? What you're doing is you're strengthening skills A through C, but you're not touching skill D. And so the reason why I think they're both valuable. So what the ghost is really, really good for is putting it all together. So you have to figure out what is skill D that's holding you back from higher levels, and then find drills that focus on that skill that are intermediate or beginning enough for you to be successful developing that skill. Then you need to play the ghost to practice putting it all together. So I think that it's like, I've talked about my dream practice session. My dream practice session is like 15, 20 minutes of a specific drill, 15, 20 minutes of a specific skill, and then some ghost play to put it all together. So maybe half an hour of a specific drill and a specific skill, and then half an hour of ghost. And that, for me, that's a great hour session, because my first half hour is focusing on building skills that I don't have, or developing skills that I'm underdeveloped in that are holding me back when I play the ghost or when I play matches. And then I can play the ghost, which is really useful at just like keeping rhythm, keeping flow, putting it all together in gameplay situations so that you're not muscle bound, so that you're actually an athlete and not just some muscle bound, guy with big muscles that can't really do anything. And so I really like a blend. And so I just wanted to talk about the limitations. So the ghost is very, very, very critical, and gameplay is very critical, but it's not the only thing, because it doesn't help identify and develop skills you haven't developed yet. It just tests the skills that you've developed in gameplay situations. So those are some thoughts on the ghost. I love what you're saying is finding a level at which you can be successful. And I'm trying to figure out if I want to go down that road. There's a conversation we have about, like, how many balls is too many balls. And I think I'll have it. I think this is a good time to work it in. It's not that long. I see a lot of people, we've talked about this, Josh, playing with too many balls on the table. So why don't you take that away? Because I think you know where I'm going with that.
Oh, well, I mean, you're talking about the Filipinos play 15-ball rotation. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. So I just told you what I think. I mean, like, for me, like, yes, they do, and that's great. But like I'm looking at effectiveness. Like, I'm sorry, man, I'll say that a lot. Like, effective. But like when someone says that to me, or when you bring that up, I think, what's effective? Like, when I'm going out and I'm playing Demi, like, and I'm playing in like really meaningful spots where I absolutely I'm under a ton of pressure and I want to win really, really bad. It's not when there's 15 balls on the table. It's when there's 8 open racks playing 8 or 9, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8 balls open on a rotation rack, and like, people are watching and they're staring at you, and are you going to get through this? It's like, that to me is like, so to me, like, that's effective, is to have those numbers, like when balls are open like that at like a super, super high percentage rate. So that's part of it. And then the other thing I was thinking too, Demi, about the trap with too many balls on the table is that there's not as much pressure, right? Because it's like, well, nobody can run out from here, or it's a very low percentage, or it's not like when you go and you play and you're playing for gambling, or you're playing in a tournament and you're nervous and you want to win. I think the tendency is, if there's a tied up ball or 2 tied up balls, or there's tons of traffic, it's like the pressure is there because you can obviously run and go and play to a spot where you can play good safety. But also the pressure is not there as much because, well, I'm just going to run until I play to a safety. So I just got to get through these 3 balls and then play a good safety and try to get back to the table and have 6 open balls. So those are kind of my ideas. It's like, so go ahead, but yeah.
Yeah. So in general, I think I agree. It's like, if you throw 15 balls on the table and say, I'm going to play rotation, because then when it's like effort played rotation. And if I play rotation, then when I get playing 9 ball, everything's going to look easy. Like, that's the narrative. But then you got to look at reality, which is that effective? And if what you do is run 1 or 2 or 3 balls and hook yourself repeatedly again and again, and then keep missing and keep kicking and keep trying to break stuff open and keep coming up and failing to get shots, to where you're missing, and then you finally end up getting down to where you end up having 7 balls on the table anyway, and you run out from there. Like, were you really practicing 15 ball rotation, or were you just kind of dogging your brains out for 20 minutes until you got to a 7-ball run you could manage? Like, what are we doing here? I don't understand. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Chewbacca the fence. It does not make sense. So what I think, and I'll tell you, I've seen 2 guys actually that were playing 9-ball against each other, and they were at a level to where there were no 9-ball table runs. The most balls that either of them were running were 5 or 6 ever. So like what would happen is they'd break and they'd bat the 1 ball around, and then they'd make the 1 and get on the 2 and bat the 2 ball around. And nobody could really make the hard shots and get through the beginning of the rack because there's too many clusters and there's too many tough shots and they're not coming up with shots. And so they'd have this 15-minute game that would go up for like literally they probably had 10 innings each before they get to the 4 ball. And then somebody would get a shot on the 5 and maybe they'd run out the balls, maybe they wouldn't. And then the other guy would finish it off. So it was like 15 minutes of swatting around the 1, 2, 3, followed by a 5-minute game with the 6 balls on the table. And what I told them was, I'm like, you guys need to play 6-ball, because I would rather have you guys play so that from the break shot, that there is a possibility that like, if you break the balls well, make a ball, come up with a shot on the 1, have 5 open balls, there's a possibility that with a good break, you can run out from the break. And that if you break and the other guy has to play safe, that he actually cares about that safety, because there's a possibility that if he plays safe and gets ball in hand, he can take ball in hand and run those 6 balls. Not even the favorite necessarily, but like he can at least, it's within striking range. Because then there's pressure on every shot, and every shot is important, because all you guys are learning is that 90% of your shots don't matter, and you're up there just hitting the cue ball and watching it bounce around and waiting until you get within scoring range. Like this is not good. So I don't even need to go down that any further. I think that should be self-explanatory why that's not ideal. But like this goes down to paring down the number of balls on the table. And I've talked to you about this for many years. Like I've talked to you, one of the things you loved like 10 years ago or 12 years ago, I told you like warming up for tournaments, just play 5 open balls. Run 5 open balls again and again and again. Because if you can get to where you're confidently and smoothly cleaning up the second half of racks, like you're going to be in good shape, man.
Yeah.
And it's actually something too about doing that at a high success rate and building confidence. And this actually is something I learned about maybe I've referenced this before. I don't know how the ancient Greeks learned poetry. I know I've talked to you about this, but like, they learned, the Iliad and the Odyssey and all these epic, right? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of poetry that they memorize. And it's like, well, how they memorized it is what most people do is they start by learning the first line of a poem and then repeating it, then try to add to it the second line and add to it the third line. But the problem is every time you do that, you're practicing failure. You're practicing getting to a part of the poem where you don't know what comes next. Again and again and again. And then you try to add to it and you keep forgetting the third line. You can remember the first 2, but not the third line. So what they did is they learned these epic poems backwards. They would start by learning the last line. And then they would learn the second to the last line and the last line. And what they would do is they would practice successfully completing the end of the poem again and again and again and again. And then they would add a line before it. And then they would practice finishing the poem with one more line in front of it. And by doing it that way, they were practicing success at a really high, instead of practicing until they failed every time, they would practice finishing successfully every time, and then longer and longer and longer pretty soon. So it's like, don't practice 15-ball rotation and fail and fail and fail. Practice 4 balls and succeed and succeed and succeed, and then throw on a 5th. And like, but keep it to where you're almost always succeeding and building confidence. And that's really, really, really good. So that's as far as we need to go down as far as like, too many balls. Why less is more? Okay. One other thing, and we're winding down here, but there's one other thing that I really thought was powerful that you told me, Josh. And it has to do with, and it kind of ties back to like knowing yourself and what's actually going to work, was excuses that people use to not put in the input when it comes to not drilling. And there's something you told me about like, wanting to do it right. Tell the listeners what you told me about like some things that people use as excuses to not put in the work.
Oh, well, on your group for your boot campers, you got the Facebook private group. A guy, I was talking about putting in work and kind of volume and doing things. And I don't know is that kind of what you're talking about? Like that response or that sort of concept, Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. Where are you going with that?
No problem. So, well, he said, I don't want to practice the wrong thing. And so like that to me immediately like set up my radar and my alarms, because what happens with that situation, and I'm the opposite of that, by the way. I'm trying to like share that, is like, I actually think I'm not concerned about that. Like, I don't think it's effective. Like it's too controlly. It's going to keep you like that mindset of, I don't want to practice the wrong thing. Like, to me, that's an excuse. That's it. Like, that's an excuse. Like, it's just like saying I don't have time, or I don't have this, or I don't have that. It's like, I don't want to practice the wrong thing. So I'm going to sit and not do anything until I find the perfect thing that I can do that'll guarantee that once I do this thing, that everything's going to work and I'm going to win in the end. And I think that it's an excuse. And so I understand, and that's why I'm a big proponent of like, hey, call Demi and get coaching. Plug, plug, plug. No, I'm just kidding. But like, I believe there is a right way to do things, and I believe that, you know, you have to find that balance between digging it out of the dirt. Like, Ben Hogan's one of the greatest golfers of all time, and he was a hack golfer, and he struggled on tour, and he had a duck hook, and he couldn't make cuts, and he's sleeping in his car. And this is before he won all his tournaments, and you know, he couldn't break 80 in a pro event, and like, that was such an inspirational story growing up, because you know, that led to my narrative. Well, just dig it out of the dirt, dig it out of the dirt. But
what does that mean for people that, yeah?
Well, it's just like he actually, you throw a golf ball down and you hit it, and you create a divot, and you're digging your answer to how to hit that golf ball correctly out of the dirt. And so like, that's a very powerful idea and concept, and that's a very inspirational idea. Like, basically
you don't question progress or direction or make excuses or debate whether to put input. You keep swinging that golf club until you win a pro event, and you don't look up until you get it done. You just keep digging until you figure it out.
Yep. And so you can also play the other side of that coin and look at Ben Hogan and say, lols, Ben, if you would have got a good coach and listened to some people that were trying to tell you about how not to duck hook the damn ball, you probably would have won more events, and you wouldn't have slept in your car for 10 years or whatever, 5 years. But the bottom line is, you got to respect the guy that digs it out of the dirt. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's got to be both. But
well, I talked about engine and steering wheel. And so if you're fueling your engine and putting in time and effort, and then you've also got to steer it. Of course, you've got to steer it. But what you don't get to do is stop pedaling. You don't get to stop feeding your engine and putting in the work, because you're questioning your direction. If every time you're not sure that you're going the right way, you use that as a little bit of indecision or doubt as an excuse to quit working, then that is going to be really easy to be like, well, I'm not sure if this is actually absolutely the most effective thing. And then you quit pedaling. So we've talked a lot about how people steer the wrong way with drills. And we talked a lot about some things that people should do to steer the right direction. But that all being said, you can't not pedal. You have to keep pushing, and you can't use, like, nobody's going perfectly the right direction. And so it's better to keep pedaling. You must keep pedaling. You must keep going. You must keep going. You must keep swinging. And it's much better to keep working and go in the wrong direction, because then you can figure out, because then if you're moving, it's easier to figure out that you're going the wrong direction, and that, hey, what I'm doing isn't working so well, and I'm not getting much in return. Why or why not? And now, maybe if you've put in an hour a day for, 3-4 times a week for 3 weeks on a certain thing that you're struggling with, now next time you see that YouTube video where a guy, you might see something or notice the way another guy hits that shot that you would never have noticed if you hadn't struggled at it for so long, or whatever it might not have meant so much. So it's like, and in the end, you might say, gosh, I've been putting all this work and this hasn't been very effective. What can I do to be more effective? And then you have a breakthrough and find something that actually helps you make more progress that you wouldn't have been as effective had you just been sitting around waiting for, God to send you a vision. So it's like, I don't know. I think so. In the end, we talked a lot about the importance of effectiveness and steering, but you can't ever stop pedaling. You always have to work. And then this is like, we assume that's like a prerequisite, is that the people that are listening to this are putting in work. And so you can't ever stop working. You just can only steer your work to where it's more effective. And that it's actually a lot easier to steer. It's like a car without power steering. It's a lot easier to steer when the car is moving than when it's sitting still. So, okay. Yeah. So that's one excuse. And the other one you touched on was like not having enough time, which is totally legitimate. Like, and to some extent, like, it's totally legitimate that you have a budget of time. So it's totally understandable. If you're working, you have children, you have to make sacrifices. There's going to be days you can't play. There's going to be days you don't have much energy. But if you have a budget of time and you're not using it because it seems like, oh, this isn't enough to add up. I've only got, an hour a couple times a week, and I just don't really have much I can put into the game. So I'm going to wait until I'm retired and I can just, my kids are moved out and I can play full time. It's like, there's a lot of people that could have done a lot of things with pool had they not talked themselves right out of it because it didn't look like enough. And I could use examples of like investing. It's only $10 a week, and that's never going to add up to anything. It's like, well, it's going to add up to a lot more than zero. And so that's it, man. And I've done that with chess, man. I've been playing chess as a rank hobby amateur chess player for like my whole life, and I've never learned. I don't want to sell every time I sell myself short, I'm like, actually, I have studied this and I have done that. I have watched that. I've done this. So it's like, I've done a few things, but like, I have never booked out my opening theory. I've never learned the Lucasi end games, or not the Lucasi. That's the cool cue. There's a thing, yeah. but it might actually be that there's like some famous end games positions with like king, rook, and pawn versus king and rook, where it's like there's sometimes when if it's on the F file, it's a win, but if it's on the E file, it's a draw, or if the king's past the 5th rank or something. It's like, I don't know all these positions by heart, which like, if you're going to be a good chess player, like you got to know these positions, man. And you got to know, I do know how to win with like a king and pawn against the king if I can gain opposition. And it's like, I know some things, but like there's so much that I don't know compared to what I do know that I've never I'm not going to bother learning all this stuff. But had I, I've been saying that to myself for 20 years. And it's like, had I, instead of just saying I'll never learn that stuff, looking back now 20 years later at how many times I've said, this isn't really going to add up. Had I actually ever just said, I'll just poke around at this a little bit, I would have been a heck of a chess player by now. And it's like, I wouldn't be winning pro events. I'm no Magnus Carlsen, but it's what I'm saying is, Josh, I've pissed away a colossal amount of time putzing around the chessboard without actually working at it. That's all. And so it adds up. Small things really do add up because life passes, man, and years pass. And you just have to ask yourself, if I take what I've done over the last 2 weeks and I project that over the next 10 years, would that lead me to improvement? Would I be a different level player? Or even over the next 5 years or 3 years? Take 3 to 5 years. If I took, just everybody listening, if what I put in over the last 2 weeks, if I maintained that current pace over the next 3 to 5 years, would that take me to new heights? And if the answer is yes, then you're probably on a better path. And if your answer is like, oh man, actually the last 2 weeks, no, I don't really think that would lead me anywhere. That's a good, litmus test. It doesn't have to be much. You just have to be able to say yes to that question.
And then the only thing I would say, we could go down this path down the road, not right now, but I would just put a little point on the end of it, which is, if you don't have the time, then find acceptance. That's it. Because what I don't enjoy is people that don't have time but want the result. So they're unhappy with where they're at with their game and they want improvement, but they don't have the time. They don't have the time. They don't have the time. Well, if you simply just look at how much time you have and build your expectations around that time, then it's great. If you only have 2 hours a week and you play leagues one night a week and you got 2 hours of practice, then use that time, like you're saying, effectively and intelligently, and then just change your narrative, change your expectations to meet that. Like if I did 2 hours a week and played leagues one night a week for the next 3 years, where would I be? How would I take that time and become at least a little better than I am right now, rather than, pissing away the 2 hours you have and then creating some narrative that, well, I'd be a lot better if I had more time, or I'll have more time in 10 years from now, or whatever it is. So that's
yeah. All. And I think the thing is, if you don't have enough time and energy to put into where you're going to see an improvement, but you still have some time that you'd like to play and enjoy the game, enjoy the game and just understand that. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm not gonna see this improvement. And when people say stuff like, "Well, I'd be a better player if I had more time to practice," I'm like, yes, true,
of course.
So what? I don't really understand. The point is, are you frustrated when you play because you resent the fact that you don't have more time to play, or can you just enjoy what you have for what it is? And the one thing I'd say is that there are seasons, and you've had this and I've had this, where there are seasons in life where nobody's going to have a static amount of time to put in and energy to put in. There's going to be times when you have more time freed up and more energy. And then there's going to be times when you have to focus on other things and really make some sacrifices for a while. And so there are seasons to pool, and you have to kind of ride through it. And when it's work season and you're feeling energetic and you're feeling like you have time and a budget of energy, then make a plan and put it in and be excited. And then when the seasons change to where it's tough, understand that, hey, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have other times to grow as a player at other times, and just, have fun when you can play, enjoy when you can play, sustain so you're not going backwards. And that way, when you do have the time to put in again, you'll have some ideas. Write them down. Hey, what are some things I want to work on when the clouds shift and I have more time and energy, and just, get through the famine and wait for the feast, and it'll pass. So
nice.
Very good. Okay. So this has been a great conversation to kick people off. Hopefully this is helping some people both with motivation to want to put in some work, and also some things they can do to be effective, because that's what it is. Effective input equals output. And so times effectiveness equals your output. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. And, you can email me at info@mnpoolbootcamp.com. I'm hoping to hear some stories of breakthroughs that you all have had over the upcoming weeks. So I will wrap up. I will tell a short road story for the road here, because that's what we're going to do to close out. And I've been torn between a couple of them. And I'll go with let's see. I got to flip a coin now. I was torn between two of them. I'll go with the one where we went down to Beloit, Josh. This was the one I was originally going to tell. So when Josh and I were kind of going to these tournaments, like we already said, we're trying to cut budget, right? We're trying to stay, keep our budget low and our return high. We're going to be businessmen, right? We're trying to play businessmen.
We're doing business deals. Yeah, we're trying to have a business plan. Yeah.
So instead of staying at a normal hotel in Beloit, I decided that we would drive across the Illinois border to, was it Love's Park? I think it was
Love's Park. There you go, baby. Love's Park.
And because they had hotels that were very affordable, and I'm being
$25, bro.
Yeah, and that was like cash after tax, like $25. And I'm like, hey, like this is awesome, like $25 for a night, like we're saving like $80. It didn't really occur to me, that you get what you pay for. Like it never occurred to me. Like in my mind, a hotel was a hotel. So what did we run into? Like, how would you describe our experience at this hotel, Josh?
Well,
getting there.
So we get there, and it's like a 2-story, and it's kind of vacant looking. And this is like late at night, like 11, 12 o'clock, kind of a really late check-in. So it looks kind of vacant. It looks kind of like Bates Motel-ish, and and it's hot out. I mean, I thought I remember it being kind of hot out, but so anyways, we get there, and the guy that's working is like literally like the least customer service, like friendly person I've ever seen in that setting. Like he's in my top 5 of like really, really like people that seem to hate life and hate you for no reason. Cause we go at, I go in there, I'm all bouncy. Hey, we're here at Love's Park. We need to stay here. And the guy's just like stone faced, and just not even stone faced, but just kind of like really like aggressive and kind of negative guy. And so finally we fight through that, and he gives us a key, and this place is empty now, right? So he gives us the key to the back of the building where it like backs into a woods and on the main level. And it's like, I'm like, ruh-roh, like, this is not good. Like, I'm like, here we are. Like, this is a heist, man. We're going to get heisted in this place. Like, it just seems so fishy and weird. It's like, why would you give us, like, with all these open rooms, why would you put us in the back in a dark, like, alley that backs up to a woods with our room on the main level? So we get in there, and immediately I'm like the twitchy and like suspicious, and I'm feeling like, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll take it from here, because like that's the setup. Is like, so we go into this room that's already like, if there was one room that you had in your hotel specifically built where you could like put people in that room if you wanted to set them up for some kind of a heist, this is the room. And then we get in there, and it's on the first floor, and there's 2 noticeable things that are different. Is one, that the door latch, the little sliding where you take the little chain and the chain lock on the door, right? The chain lock is busted off and it's just hanging from the door. It's like, it doesn't latch. The latch is broken, so you can't use the chain lock. So the only thing you can use is this, like the handhold lock, which is like extremely flimsy. Like, I'm not a strong guy, and I felt like it was like paper mache. And then the other thing about it was that it was on the first floor, and that the window had no screen, and the window slid open and did not lock either. It had it was like this window that it was really, really weird. And maybe there was a stick or something you could try to prop in there, but it really did not feel secure. And so So this is my favorite memory of Josh on the road. Josh looks at this and his radar's up and he's escalating, like almost like he's in combat. And he looks at the TV as on this huge dresser or like nightstand. It was like this huge entertainment center. And Josh takes the TV off it. And he like, it was like an Incredible Hulk. I don't know how he did this, but he like power just slid this thing over in front of the door. And he's like, well, forget the chain lock. He's like, they're not opening that door. And then he looks at the window and he like he like props the window closed with like a stick, with like the little stick. And he's like testing to make sure it doesn't slide open too far. And he sits there and he's looking at all this and he's kind of staring at it like he's kind of contemplating it all. And then I'll never forget, he goes and he lays down in his bed and he brings his pool case over. And he opens up his pool case and he takes the butt of his brake cue and he lays it next to the bed. And he lies down in bed and he starts practicing sitting up and reaching for the butt of his brake cue. Like he practices like this ninja maneuver where he's like imagining like in the dead of the night if he needs to like, roll out of bed and come up with his brake cue, his butt. And he sits there and he's looking at it in his hand and he's looking at the brake cue butt in his hand and he's kind of doing this maneuver, like rehearsing this. And he looks at the door and he says, they better have guns if they come in here. He's like, if they come in here with knives, he's like, if they just have knives, he's like, I'm ready for them. They better have guns if they come at me. And I'll never forget that. And so anyway, we spent the night there and it was like, nothing happened, but I'll tell you what, we never stayed there again. And we never cut on a hotel like that again, because I'm like, I don't want to put Josh through that. And it's our safety is worth more than that. So that was a pretty epic. We took a picture of you. I took a picture of you sliding that thing in front of the door, and I'll just never forget you sitting there swirling that brake cue like it was some kind of weapon. Like, well, this is I'm ready. So
they're gonna have to get through this. Yeah. Gosh, it felt like a heist the whole time. It was so funny, man.
Yeah. Yep. Good stuff, man. The good times on the road together. So. Well, everyone, listen, for those that made it to the end, I really appreciate it. So give us some feedback, or not. The best feedback you can give is tuning in. If you like it, keep sticking around. If you don't, there's going to be a variety of stuff. Check out the Cue It Up Network. We've got a lot of different songs. Some are ballads, some are pop hits, whatever you like here on the Cue It Up Network. And signing off with me, Demetrius Gelatis from Minnesota Pool Boot Camp, and Josh Burbul, my best friend and road partner and top player. So Josh, thanks for a great sesh, and we'll do it again soon.
Awesome, Dem. Yep. Thanks for everyone for listening, and hope you pick something out of it. We could be helpful at all. That's why I want to do it. That's why we're doing it. So awesome.
All right. See you guys next time.